The name of Wilhelm Gustloff is associated with the worst maritime disaster in history. The ship Wilhelm Gustloff sank off the coast of what is today Poland on the 30th of January 1945. However, the ship was named after a man, a prominent Nazi operating in Switzerland, who was killed and thus became a martyr to the National Socialist cause. Contrary to what is sometimes claimed, Wilhelm Gustloff was not Swiss, but was born in Schwerin, northeast of Berlin, on the 30th of January 1895. His father was a business person. After school, Wilhelm Gustloff began an apprenticeship as a bank clerk. He had chronic lung disease and an affected larynx, and this is the reason he was able to avoid conscription in World War I. Perhaps in order to escape the deprivations of wartime Germany and the hope of improving his health, he moved to Davos in Switzerland in 1917. Here he found employment as a meteorologist at the meteorological observatory in Davos. In 1923, Gustloff married Hedwig Schoknecht, the daughter of a postal clerk in his hometown of Schwerin. The marriage remained childless. In 1921, Gustloff became a member of the Deutsch-Völkischer Schutz- und Trutzbund. This organization was founded following the merger of several Völkisch clubs to become the largest Völkisch organization in Weimar, Germany, with 180,000 members by 1922. The Deutsch-Völkischer Schutz- und Trutzbund agitated against the Weimar democracy, against all left-wing and progressive movements, and above all against Jews. The Trutzbund organized the German Day in Coburg, and in this photograph we can see the Nazi Party delegation at Coburg Castle on that day. It was banned in most states of Germany following the political murder of Foreign Minister Walter Rathenau on the 24th of June 1922. The Trutzbund also supported the assassination attempts on former Finance Minister Matthias Erzberger in August 1921 and Philipp Scheidemann in June 1922, as well as the Consul terrorist organization. After its dissolution, a number of members migrated over to the National Socialists. Such people included Werner Best, Leonardo Conti, Kurt Daluege, Dietrich Eckart, Gottfried Feder, Reinhard Heydrich, Karl Kaufmann, Hinrich Lohse, Fritz Sokol, and Julius Streicher, amongst others. In 1927, they were joined by Wilhelm Gustloff, who in 1932 became full-time regional group leader of the Nazi Party Foreign Organization in Switzerland. After the Nazi seizure of power in Germany, Gustloff set up a network of what he termed bases in Bern, Glarus, Lausanne and Zuoz, and local groups in Davos, Lugano, Zurich and Basel. It is worth pointing out that the population of Lugano and Lausanne were not German speakers. These cities are Italian and French speaking respectively. By mid-1934, there were already 27 bases, 14 local groups, and Hitler Youth and League of German Girls groups in 7 locations, and an expanded national organization with the secretariat, support staff, propaganda manager, treasurer, and press officer. By 1936, he had recruited more than 5,000 of the approximately 100,000 German expatriates in Switzerland as party members and found sympathizers and patrons for National Socialism amongst the Swiss too. It may be recalled that Hitler had travelled to Switzerland seeking funds in 1923 with Dietrich Eckart, and although that visit was unsuccessful, it had shown that there were wealthy and influential people in Switzerland prepared to support such organisations as the Nazi Party. Having a foreigner openly promoting anti-democratic and anti-Semitic propaganda activities in Switzerland led to questions being asked in the Swiss Parliament as from December 1933. The Swiss Federal Councillor Johannes Baumann said in September 1935 that this behaviour was tolerated for foreign policy reasons. Nevertheless, Gustloff was later threatened with expulsion after his propaganda newspaper, Der Reichsdeutscher, announced that the local political leaders of the Swiss Nazi Party had sworn loyalty to Adolf Hitler. The management of the Nazi Party foreign organization in Germany now tried to employ him as a legation attaché for German issues under diplomatic immunity. All this, of course, would have required accreditation. The Swiss did not want to allow this, and in turn threatened to be able to declare diplomat Gustloff persona non grata in this case. The envoy Ernst von Weizsäcker was able to get Swiss politicians to change their minds, but even this could not rein in the Swiss newspapers, which now also claimed that Gustloff was involved in the kidnapping of Berthold Jacob. Berthold Jacob was a German opponent of Nazism who had been living in France and had been lured into Switzerland, where he was kidnapped and packed off to Germany and the Gestapo prison in the Alexanderplatz in Berlin. Ernst von Weizsäcker wrote a diplomatic protest note against attacks by the press on members of the German government. Finally, Gustloff was burdened by the case of Helmut Kittelmann, who had a doctorate in law and dual nationality, both Swiss and German. He was employed by the Swiss Parliament as a parliamentary stenographer, and when his membership of the National Socialist Party became known, he was dismissed without notice and without any pension entitlements. Weizsäcker and Baumann tried to smooth things over in diplomatic talks on the 20th of January 1936. However, the press attacks on the Nazi Party continued, and this led to demands in Parliament for tougher action on the NSDAP. On the 30th of January 1936, Gustloff was in Berlin for his 41st birthday, which also coincided with the seizure of power by Hitler. He came back for an appointment with destiny, which was a meeting with David Frankfurter on the 4th of February 1936. David Frankfurter was born in Darovar, which is today in Croatia, but then was part of Austro-Hungary. His father, Marvo Frankfurter, was a rabbi there and later was the chief rabbi in Vinkovici, where the Frankfurter family had relocated in 1914. After completing his basic education, he began studying medicine. His father sent him to Germany to study dentistry, first in Leipzig and then in 1931 to his ancestral city of Frankfurt, where his uncle was a rabbi in the Dresdner Strasse synagogue. Frankfurter had been in Germany as the Nazis came to power, and he'd witnessed firsthand the excesses against Jewish people. In 1934 he settled in Bern. Here he witnessed once more the rise of the Nazis, this time led by Wilhelm Gustloff. Gustloff had arranged for the publication of the Tsarist anti-Semitic tract, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, to be published in Switzerland. It may have been this which pushed him into acting. Frankfurter bought a gun in Bern. He found Gustloff's address easily as it was listed in the phone book. On the 4th of February 1936, he went to the Gustloff home. Gustloff's wife, Hedwig Gustloff, received him and showed him to the study, asking him to wait as her husband was on the telephone, but he would be with him presently. When Gustloff, who was in the adjoining room, entered his office where Frankfurter was sitting opposite a picture of Hitler, Frankfurter introduced himself as a Jew and then shot him 5 times in the head, neck and chest. Leaving a screaming Hedwig Gustloff, Frankfurter calmly went to the next door neighbour and asked to use the telephone to call the police, then patiently waited for them to arrive and arrest him. National Socialist propaganda made Wilhelm Gustloff a martyr of the movement and had his coffin brought to the Reich by a special train. However, the murder had occurred at a bad time for Hitler, as the Winter Olympics were about to start on the 6th of February 1936 in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. On the 5th of February 1936, Reich Interior Minister Wilhelm Frick issued an instruction. Prevention of riots on the occasion of the murder of the Swiss group leader of the NSDAP, Gustloff. With reference to my decree to prevent riots of the 20th of August 1935, I order, in agreement with the Deputy Leader Rudolf Hess, that individual actions against Jews on the occasion of the assassination of the head of the Swiss national group of the NSDAP, Wilhelm Gustloff, in Davos, are forbidden. I request action to be taken against anyone who contravenes this order and to maintain public safety and order. Adolf Hitler too limited his speech at Gustloff's funeral in Schwerin to a relatively restrained and moderate, in his opinion, speech. The Jewish enemy, he said, had now appeared openly and without hired intermediaries for the first time. Hitler soon demanded a bill to levy a special tax on the Jews and ordered the preparations for a corresponding bill to be accelerated so that the law could be announced after the end of the Gustloff trial. 2 years later, when Ernst von Rath was assassinated in Paris, Nazi mobs initiated Kristallnacht, burning synagogues and Jewish homes across the country. The Nazi leadership at the time claimed that this was the people venting justice on the Jews, but what happened in February 1936 clearly showed that the Nazi leadership could control their underlings when it suited their purposes. Streets were named after Gustloff in Beckenstein, Freital and Magdeburg. In Dusseldorf, today's Nordpark-Siedlung took his name. In his hometown of Schwerin, a memorial in a grove of honor commemorated him and other martyrs, or that is how the Nazis termed them anyway. His urn was also buried there in the foundation of an erected boulder. The monument and boulder were blown up in 1947 by the Soviet occupation authorities. The newest and largest KDF ship just commissioned at that time was to have been named the Adolf Hitler, but Hitler himself decided to name the ship the Wilhelm Gustloff. The ship, the Wilhelm Gustloff, was built by Blömen Voss in Hamburg for the German Labour Front. The ship owner was thus the German Labour Front, the DAF. However, the Wilhelm Gustloff was managed, crewed and maintained by the Hamburg South America Steamship Company. It was launched on the 5th of May 1937 when Hedwig Gustloff, the widow of Wilhelm Gustloff, gave it its name with the Nazi dictator standing beside her. Hitler and Hedwig Gustloff had known each other. She had been his secretary before her marriage. On the 15th of March 1938, the ship was completed. Its maiden voyage commenced on the 23rd of March of the same year. Hitler awarded Hedwig Gustloff a pension of 400 marks per month, which was more than 3 times the average wage. On the 30th of January 1945, what would have been the 50th birthday of Wilhelm Gustloff had he lived, the ship was sunk by a Soviet submarine. Around 9,000 people drowned, the largest loss of life in any maritime disaster, thus immortalizing the name of the Nazi meteorologist who had left Germany in 1917. I hope you found that interesting. I have done a video on the loss of the Wilhelm Gustloff, which you can find on this channel, and indeed I have done a lot more relating to the Nazi period in German history. So if you're interested, I upload every Friday at 2000 hours Central European time, and sometimes I upload at other times as well. And so if you want to know when I'm uploading, if you press the bell and subscribe, then you'll know what I'm doing. But for the moment, all the best from me in Wrocław, Poland.